Be a
Yeah.
day. Welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. And this week, you're in for a treat because it's just myself and Jamila that is going live today. And it's always a blessing for me when we get to share this space in reflection, in gratitude, all by ourselves, even amidst the chaos and the grieving and whatever losses that we've incurred and are incurring. But we still show up here in gratitude. So, welcome, Marissa. Marissa's already on there on Instagram. Welcome to everyone that's here on Insta, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And as the conversation is about gratitude, we are grateful for those that are here and that support us and that reshare our posts, that watch the afterplays, or what is it? What do we call it? The afterplays or the rerun? I don't know. Who cares? So, welcome, Jamila. You look like you're in winter there, and I'm in summer. It's really hot here in Cape Town.
I know we've been having terrible weather here in Johannesburg. Hello to everyone. Hi, Aneesa and Marissa, and to everyone else who's watching. Yeah, it's just been a crazy time of the year. The weather's been so unpredictable. We've had rain and thunderstorms every day. You actually have to wonder whether is it summer or are we in winter still? Um,
Yes.
but as with life, we got to take the the sunshine and the rain as it comes,
And the
and
storms.
the storms. It's been a long year, but having
I
said that, it's
know.
it's a year that went by so quickly as well, Anissa. I don't know if you felt that way.
I do. At first I thought it was just me as you reach the version 4.0 age and up, that maybe it's because we're getting older. But my kids feel the same way. My daughter keeps saying, Mom, I don't know where the year went. Like it was just so incredibly busy. Welcome, Shahid, on YouTube. Always good to have him here. And I mean, Shahid always gives us the most beautiful feedback post the session. I wish I can actually post it there so that people can see the appreciation that comes from those that are getting value from this segment. So thank you, Shahid, as always, for you and your wife that joins us religiously. The topic today is really, what are we celebrating? A year of grace, growth, and becoming. It's really more than a topic, because in that becoming is the grief, the disappointments, um, the letdowns, whatever however you want to phrase it, and the difficulties and the obstacles that you have faced. But yet, if we sit and we really look at what are we most grateful for, what do we achieve this year? I mean, I see Ashik is saying gratitude to all as it begins to snow. Yes, you in Canada, so it's snowing now. You in your winter for sure. And hasn't it just been now Thanksgiving in America and everywhere that side of the world? So I think our conversation is going to be pretty apt today, that
Mhm.
we want to look at a heartfelt space back to what this year has been. What were some of those highlights for you, Jamila? What are some of the lowlights still? Because we don't end it just there. The lowlights will show up, but it's in our response. And on grace we've received from maybe others, or have we given ourselves grace in moments? And then the growth we've earned and the ways we become more of who we are meant to be. And as the year winds down, we're going to celebrate some of the lessons, the shifts, the breakthroughs, and even the quiet victories that we often overlook. And I want to just share that I am listening to a podcast by DG. It's the pathway to results. He's an ex-basketball player, but what I'm listening to is the alter ego. And that for us to have this becoming, I'll send it to you, Jamila. I'm almost done listening to it.
Please do.
In this becoming, you have to heal versions of yourself. And in this becoming, you have to have different alter egos. So, which alter ego are you possibly in now, Jamila, for this phase and stage? And I haven't got the answer yet because I still need to process this. But I have, interestingly enough, been in the energy this week and in particular today to say, hello, no, 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 no. It stops right here, right now, in terms of whether I have my own pity party, whether I am having difficulty, whether I'm faced with insurmountable challenges, which I am. I'm very public always about it. And that it's okay, that it's part of and parcel of it. But who do I need to become? What alter ego should I take on to face and close up this year strong? And equally, what is the alter ego needing to be for 2026? So I want to start there, Jamila.
Aneesa, it has certainly been a year of becoming, and I think that we stopped asking ourselves, like, who am I, but rather, who am I becoming?
Mm.
And that's been a common thread throughout the year in my experience.
Yes.
Um, and, we ask, like, what does grace, growth, and becoming actually mean um, to us? Um, And I think for me, what I found is the importance of creating that pause, creating the pause in the experiences, the challenges, the highs and the lows that we've been engulfed within this year, because it certainly has been a roller coaster for me, from high highs to low lows, to not feeling my best to feeling like I'm invincible. And I think that the lesson that I've learned in this year is to create the pause and to understand exactly where I am here and now, which allows me to appreciate, which allows me to recalibrate, and allows me to be that better version of myself. Um, and also just not to judge myself, but to acknowledge my just who I am, just to acknowledge what I've been through, just to acknowledge the challenges that have come my way. And if I've been knocked down, rather not focus on the knocking down, but how I've gotten up, and how I've recovered from things, which in itself I think allows for and really demands a lot of gratitude. um,
Mm.
I think if we have to if I have to reflect on the year, um, you know and where grace has held me, um, when life felt really, really heavy. But I found that strength in stillness and in that pause. Um,
Mm.
when I was going through the most and I was supported by people who I totally just never expected to be there for me.
Oh, I
And
know
that
that all too
gratitude
well.
came in then. And when something didn't go my way, I reframed it, and I unlearned how I would normally, accept that. And
Mm.
I rather looked at it as, how is this redirecting me into something that's so much more beautiful, that's so much more
Mm.
worthy of where I am, or something so beyond what my expectations could be. And I think just moments where I've given myself, or I've allowed myself the grace to rest, to give myself the gift of compassion and forgiveness. And I think that's where um, I've found in my reflection that grace has really held true and has held me in good stead in that sense. What about you,
That's
Anissa?
beautiful. That's really beautiful, and I want to echo something that you've said. Two things, which is quite profound. And I don't think people can comprehend how profound it is until they've chosen to take on the approach of that reframe. So the first thing that you said was, I've learned to give myself grace, and I've also received grace from others. But what has been your biggest insight is to see that this grace was from people that you least expected it from, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't have negativity or anger or resentment or grudges towards those that did not show up because you realized you were still being held nonetheless, the gift of still being held. And I don't think one can understand because that means that there has been a shift. We're not operating from that egoic space where we have expectation that those that don't show up for us in the way that we want them to, and then we want to almost hold them to account. We want to pass judgment, but
For
how
our
come we,
expectations.
yes, for our expectations?
Mhm.
Welcome, Jessica. On nice to see you here. Jessica is an old school buddy from way back when. Nice to see people from Saudi Arabia here. Rashid, please tell us what you are grateful for. And yes, and what are your, for those that are on, what are your desires, your wishes? Um, what is the purpose for you for 2026? You know, is it about you? Is it about others? Is it a combination of that? Yeah, do share with us. We'd love to get your insight and wisdom too today. So make it as interactive and engaging.
Yeah.
The
And
second
Anis,
thing
I
that's,
want to ask you a question actually, because you're single
yeah,
mom to three children, and that is by no means anything easy. I mean, like hats off to you to do that. It's difficult enough with one, but
mhm,
with three, I can't even begin to imagine the demands that are placed on you or the demands that you would place on yourself, right? And
sure.
as a result of that, I'll speak for myself, and I'm pretty sure that it's the same for you. Is that you change as you go through the different experiences and the phases in not only your own life but with your kids' lives. And when it comes to emotional, physical, financial, spiritual
Mhm,
issues at hand, it sometimes feels like it's just all too encompassing for you to carry
yes.
on your shoulders by yourself.
Mm,
um, and you tend to put up um, this barrier of protection around you, to harden yourself.
yes. And that connects, that connects.
Yeah. And
So your
tell
question,
me,
what is, yes.
when was there a time in this year where life actually softened you and
Do you want to know?
surprised
It's
you?
like last week, like just last week. I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Let me double check that, and then I'll tell you now to be exact, because um, it's more than last week, but I almost want to use last week as the catalyst to finally saying, wait, hold on. So as a single mom, and as you've heard many a times, most of the load is on me, right? And I've made peace with that. I didn't, I don't hold any grudges to my ex-spouse. But at the same time, it does become quite cumbersome. So I have been celebrating the growth that I've had in my business, and yet to rebuild, to get back to that growth, I needed to leverage a lot of my credit facilities. And I see money as a currency and energy and an enabler. So I didn't see, oh, well, it doesn't matter if I'm leveraging credit. Now I've reached sort of the disproportionate balance between having depleted those facilities. My business has grown back to close on 100% and where it was. And in fact, there's been growth because I got new clients this year, especially in a year that is quite difficult for others because they're not experiencing growth. And where the softness came in is where I realized it is okay to not be okay to ask for help because I'm radically independent. And I have been since 16, as in living on my own since 16. So to ask anybody for any type of support takes a lot out of me. I don't do that. The last time I asked anyone was 10 years ago when I was still married. and I needed to support my ex-spouse at the time in his business. That was the last time I did something like that. So for me, there's this hard exterior because that is the survival in me that, well, I don't have any expectations in anyone because I'd rather have no expectations so that you won't be disappointed. But I have been so amazed by where I've reached out raw, real, and unfiltered and given my position openly and honestly and said, I need help. I need support. Yes, to your point, the ones that I thought would show up didn't, but I'm okay with that too. So my response has been very different than before because I must remember I also have an abandonment rejection wound. So if nobody responds, or, oh, well, nobody's interested, nobody cares. But what's been interesting though is that there's a lot of people in my tribe that does care. And whether they can't help from a financial perspective, maybe they can give me their time to hold space to say, let's strategize how we can, reposition your business and grow it even more. Let's refocus on how we can get you investment for your business. It has been the one thing that has humbles me, to say the least, to ask for help. And secondly, to be on the receiving end and saying, well, look at the forms that it's coming in, and it's disappointing still. Let's not forget there is the human side in us. The ones that we want must show up, whether it's our own flesh and blood, whether it is our closest circle that doesn't show up. It's hard when they don't. Or the reverse, people take you for granted because they know, that saying when they know you're down and they want to knock you when you're even more down and they want to take you for granted and give you less than what you are worthy and deserving of. And that's another thing that's made me realize, but I know my worth and my value. Might be a difficult patch or stage that I'm going through in my life, but I am not going to play small and feel like an imposter. So on the one hand, it's humbled me, right? And on the other hand, what it's done is it's elevated me to have more conviction of my truth of who I really truly am and what I have to offer. It was a long answer, but a very
Yeah, no, I mean, like,
heartfelt, raw, real answer.
completely exactly like on point with what we are speaking about, and I have to commend you. And it takes a certain amount of bravery also, apart from humility. It takes bravery for you to ask, and to reveal yourself and to be that vulnerable with people. um, and I think for me, this has come a few times in my experience during this year, and that's why I say it's come from high highs to low lows and, everywhere in between. And with this year, it was just a year of such dramatic change. Um, and change within myself, because you want to question, you want to blame, you want to be angry, you want to feel like the victim, and you want to feel like, why does this always happen to me? Why can't I have what my dreams are, or how I see myself or my life being in my head? And and as I say, this year has taken me through some really tough times as well. And rather than focusing on continuously asking why, and putting on that victim cap for myself, I think a big lesson that I've learned is that we are we are in control of how our lives unfold. And I always go back to this, and sometimes I forget it, and then I've got to remind myself. But we have been created in the image of the divine, with the power of the divine within us, even if it's just a spark, by default of who we've been created by. So when we come into this world, we come in with absolutely every highest power of manifestation, highest power of choosing how our lives should and would unfold. But we become so brainwashed, um, by society and by family, and we create these patterns which we later on in life learn that we've got to unlearn. But I think a big lesson came when I was also listening to a podcast the other day, and it spoke about what we put into a computer, or whatever code we put into a computer is what we will achieve, right? Um, and likewise in life, whatever it is that we put in, whichever code we put in, will manifest into what life we want. So I know it's been said over and over again, but the company that you keep, the language that we speak, the words that we declare, it all has a direct impact of where and how our lives should and would flow towards. And I've realized that, and I've written a post about it, I'm not sure if you saw it. It's about confidence. It's about confidence in knowing your true power and your worth. And by putting in that code, we are in control of it. So if I'm going to be speaking about what a big victim I am, that's all I'm going to be attracting. And it's about raising the frequency that we are in at the moment in order to be able to attract something that we so desire. So that has been a big learning lesson for me in this year, to try and change my mindset and look at it from a different perspective, but also to accept that sometimes we are being rerouted because there's a better way, or there's a better destination ahead for you. And I think that we need to also have that faith and the acceptance of knowing that when things are not in our control and is working out a certain way, never ever look at it from a negative or pessimistic perspective, but rather from a perspective of faith and understanding and trust in knowing that you deserve the best.
Exactly.
And because
Exactly.
your journey hasn't gone in a certain direction that you expected it to, it does not mean that you're not going to be reaping the rewards. The rewards may be so much more than what you've expected. So I think that having that faith has been a go-to for me, especially in the difficult times. Um,
I have to agree with you on the faith part, Jamila, because I just finished that 40-day spiritual program, and being in the energy and the vibration of other women going through their own journeys. And look, mine was more, I wanted to participate to get closer to my creator, right? Closer to the divine God, Allah, whoever, however you frame your divine as. And what was quite um, valuable in that entire journey is our illusion of control. It's the fact that we think we are in control, or the illusion that others are in control. Those have been the two biggest shifts for me on the program, besides the Islamic religious part of it and the lessons and the different concepts and how it weaves into understanding how we sabotage ourselves, versus how we can come back to the light within ourselves. That you spoke about, that divinity is that light, and reconnecting with the soul of ourselves. Because when we see ourselves and others as souls, we pretty much one with everyone else.
mm,
But it's the the idea of losing that relationship, or that grief that we've lost the relationship, whether it's a friendship or the job that you never got because you went and you were like third round and like, yes, I'm getting this, and then you don't get it. It is rerouting, because that was never meant to be in your path. And I know there's a a supplication in our faith that speaks to you might like something and it might not be good for you, versus you might not like something and it's actually really good for you. And so that in its essence for me is letting go of the illusion that others is controlling your provisions, your opportunities, your relationships. You are given that full autonomy to make choices, but with the caveat that you have to let go. It is not in your control. You need to show up, do what you need to do, and do it with the conviction and the certainty that you are going to receive. And we can
Mm,
only do that when we're in a space of gratitude, because gratitude is the highest form of receivership. When you can be grateful for the storms and say, well, hold on, what do I take from this? What is God asking of me? Okay, I didn't get that opportunity. Is He asking me to see my value that I've missed? See um, my ability to take things to the next level? Whatever it is for you that is listening into us today, it is the illusion of that control and letting go and fully submitting to the higher power that is the only one that is in control of our destinies.
mm.
And even if that friendship ended, it was meant to, that season has ended. Even if that person did not follow through for you in the way that they should, what does it say? The dependency, the attachment we have on others, right?
I think also it's important to understand, Anissa, that you just mentioned that it took a lot of bravery and humility to be able to be so vulnerable and to ask. And asking is the most difficult thing to do, as you know. But from the outside, no one would say that about you, right? Because we're always trying to avoid this. And I think also what we need to do is to allow that understanding in the response that we get from others, because sometimes people don't respond the way that you expect them to, and maybe not for the reasons that you think. Because it's so difficult. We all have different ways of responding to um, requests from us, expectations from us, but we never ever truly know what the other person is going through. We really never know unless the person shares with you, because our idea
I,
of what
I have to I
someone's
have to come
reality
in there.
might be is completely different to what their actual
No, for
lived
sure.
reality may be. And
But
as
but
such,
I think we said earlier on, you said it. It's in the reframe of when you get disappointment and you don't get people that you think was going to support you. It's in that reframe when you are leading with empathy. Okay, wait, this person didn't respond. There's something going on in their life, right? So I do think that for us that are constantly on the journey, and I'm not saying we have arrived, I'm really not saying that. It's a constant journey and struggle for us too to be vulnerable and show up and to go and look which part was responding of me. Was it my wounded? That's what I mentioned earlier on. Was it my abandonment wound, my rejection wound? Or was I actually in my wholeness to know that whoever the provision or answer or support comes from is actually has already been identified by the higher power, and those are the people that's supposed to support you. You can't control that. So just to answer that, I know I interjected, but it is really for me that's been the biggest aha, not just last week, but this year. It's been a year of that, when whether you look for business and you're close to it and you're nearly going to close that deal, and then it doesn't happen, and then you think, but you ticked all the boxes, all the T's were crossed, the I's were dotted, and you still didn't get it. So that's the part where we have to realize you can't control how others must respond, and you have to lead with empathy and curiosity to say, well, I wonder what might be going on for that person. And out of my outreach last week, I can tell you maybe just a little bit more than a handful, and I definitely sent it to more than two hands full and 2 feet full because I knew I needed to ask for help. Maybe five, six people came back, and I was okay with that, you know? So we must be respectful that we're living in very difficult times globally. Globally. I see your lady in the background there. So yeah, I think I certainly feel, Jamila, that when we have when we okay with uncertainty, and that's the other biggie that's made me soft, is
Mm,
learning to be okay with the uncertainty, not knowing what the next step is, the next move, how things are going to happen, how things are going to come together, the puzzle pieces, and it's being okay with that leads you to contentment and peace.
mm, absolutely. I think another thing that this year taught me as well, Aneesa, is that, we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people or other people's rate of success in their lives. And what I realized is that as a child, I grew up like really insecure of myself. I was never ever the one who was like loud and extroverted, and that wasn't me. I would like more likely fade into the background. And what I've realized in my adult life is that those who were loud and were outspoken and commanded the room, irrespective of what their qualifications were or what the personality was, they were able to demand that success or growth. And I lived with this, right? And I think that I just been thinking about it so much as to, but then why would you need to change who you are? Why is it not enough for me to be who I am but still be successful? But I think that it made me relook at what confidence truly is. And yes, we all need the confidence. We all need to shine as brightly as we can with all of the benefits and the gifts that we've been given. But keeping in mind, to be thoughtful and humble as you do that. And you by certainly no means have to be the loudest. I realized that it wasn't the loudest personality or the perfect presentation or the biggest performance that gave you that validation. I think that making the decision to embrace that confidence within who you are and what your gifts are is what makes the change for you. Because if you trust and believe in who you are, that's confidence in yourself. And that makes a huge amount of difference in what you can and cannot achieve. And it goes back to me saying, you know, the frequency with which we vibrate and the words that we declare and speak for ourselves, and what we want for ourselves. Because a lot of times, I mean, because we've been grown up to believe that everything shouldn't be about us. We should be there helping everyone else and making sure that, we are not monopolizing on benefiting the most. I think that we have to get rid of that mindset, and we have to because if we're not going to allow ourselves to shine, no one else is going to do it for us. Um, and we've got to take that decision. It's an internal agreement with ourselves, I think, that, you rise even though you're trembling or you're afraid or you're scared of it. And confidence for me became three things. It became clarity of knowing who you are beneath the fear, beneath the noise, beneath in any of anyone else's expectations. We each know what we are capable of. We each grow up with these burning desires and dreams of what we our lives should look like. And I think that we forget that along the way. And that fire within us is doused by the experiences that we have in going through our adulthood. And I think that it's so important for us to reclaim that clarity of who we are, and what we are able to achieve. And then I think choice is a big one, because you choose to say that this is how I show up. I don't need to show up as anyone else. I don't need to show up through anyone else's expectations, you know, or how society dictates us to be. But just show up in your own truth. And then I think courage, and I've learned this one through the whole divorce and just being a single mom and being a person on your own, a woman on your own, going through the trials and tribulations of life. And when it knocks you down, and you do feel like there's just no way through it.
Mm,
But just to have that courage to say that I will do it, irrespective of whether I'm fearful, irrespective of whether I'm scared, I will do it, because bravery is not in the absence of fear, but
mm,
it is the willingness to move forward despite it, and to
mm,
understand and know and to claim what you know is rightfully yours. And I think that's made a huge difference for me. So it doesn't have to be loud, it doesn't have to be showy, it doesn't have to be in your face or the biggest personality in you. It is that internal agreement that you make with yourself to say that I have the confidence to actually play out what my dreams are, or what that vision is for what I want in my life,
mm.
irrespective of what is going on. And I think
That's
that that's
powerful.
something that really gave me peace and alignment, and has helped me to create that momentum to
Mm,
move forward, irrespective of the number of failures that I may have experienced during the year. And again, look at those failures as that rerouting. And we've spoken about this before, but like they say, with your GPS, when you're putting in a certain destination, and all of a sudden you're going the wrong way, it doesn't say, "Oh, you're going the wrong way. That's it. You're doomed now. Rather go back home." It
mm.
reroutes you. It
Yes.
recalculates, it recalibrates until you get to where you need to be.
Very powerful share there. I mean, that three C's is definitely a blueprint, right?
Mm.
And for those that are listening that want to know more, I'm sure that Jamila has got more depth to this than just the post that she wrote and what she shared here. So do reach out to her, because she is a wealth and breadth of wisdom, and all the C's that you've mentioned: clarity, choice, and courage. I mean, I know you only for a short period of time, and I've seen you step into the fire and rise above it. And I've seen you say, well, okay, I'm not going to be loud and proud, even though others have been loud and obnoxiously so, in retaliation even towards you from remembering that young guy, but we won't say his name. But just in terms of the things that you have shared with me over the short time, and I say short time, 2 years that I've gotten to know you, you've led with a quiet confidence and quiet leadership. So innately, I have seen you own that quiet leadership part that you're referring to right now. I've seen you not need to have the last say, and be okay with it as well, in what you've shared with me from your experiences offline, that is. And I like what you're saying, because I've had to also regroup. For those that know, I had such a big rebrand June to August, and I was all the time online, and I was frustrated by it, actually, and I told the social media marketing ladies, I don't need to be there all the time because one, yes, I am the brand of my business, but I don't need to be there if I really truly believe what I have to offer will impact others positively because I've proven that over and over. Why do I need to be online all the time, right? So I think that it's been a monumental lesson for me too. And I knew I was intuitively feeling that anyway. And then one of my peer coaches, she posted something yesterday, so like meaningful, showing up and being able to show up regardless of how you're feeling. And it's not showing up because you want to promote yourself or show your business success anymore. It is, you can work in silence, but you can still show up and share whatever you feel compelled to in those moments. So I do think that there's a lot of relevance into doing things silently, just leading from the back and no needing to be out there. And I think that's been a big lesson this year. And I needed to go with my gut, and I did eventually, but I should have gone there sooner. Like when in the first month and a half, I knew no, something doesn't feel intuitively right with this collaboration. Yet I still trusted it and went with it. Why? Because it's like you say, when you don't lead with your own confidence around what you bring, you're going to listen to others where they might say to you, well, you need to sell it in this way.
Mm,
It doesn't always have to be the case.
mm.
Because again, if we say we truly understand the law of reciprocity or manifestation or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't mean that you need to be out there anymore.
No.
Social media has a place, let's face it. I'm certainly not saying I'm not going to show up on social media, but I don't think I need to be as loud. And I
Mm.
think we need to take the lesson in that because when we're that loud, what are we searching for? Validation? We want applause?
I think the louder you become, the more you need to question yourself,
Yes.
and to ask what's the reasoning behind it. And that's been a big lesson as well this year for me, is to internalize a lot, to
Mm,
self-question, and to dig deeper, and to just to get a better understanding of who I am.
mm,
And there's been many lessons this year that's shifted me. And sometimes losing people actually gives you back yourself,
mm. Very
because we don't
true.
realize how much we give to people that are around us or who we think we need to have around us, and it changes the fabric of who we are, because you're just not operating for your benefit or your highest good. It's always about what do you want from that person that you're so willing to give so much of yourself. So I
Mm.
think that that's been a big lesson for me this year. Sometimes losing them is actually, gaining something back for yourself.
Creating
Um,
space.
yeah, and alignment will cost you your comfort zone. That's been
Oh,
a
yeah.
big lesson for me that has really shifted me,
Oh, my
but it
word. I
gives
think we
you
need to
your
type that
peace.
up. Let me type that. Alignment will cost you your comfort zone. I'm going to put it
Yeah.
on
It'll
as a Jamila quote.
it'll cost you your comfort zone, Aneesa, but it will give you the most amount of peace for yourself. Okay? Because in that alignment you will find the peace. But it'll take you completely out of what you used to and what you think is your normal. Okay. Another
Okay.
lesson that really, really shifted me in this year is that you cannot become her if you keep apologizing for who she is. This
Ooh,
has been such a huge, huge, impactful lesson for me. And I can't tell you how it's just changed the way that I think about myself, the way that I show up nowadays is that there's absolutely nothing wrong for me. And we've had this ingrained doctrination, I guess, growing up that you should be a certain way, and if you're not, you've got to apologize for it, and you're constantly doing this, apologizing and apologizing, and it is the biggest disrespect, I think, towards your creator, for apologizing for who you are, for apologizing for the creation of someone who is infinitely powerful and divine. So I cannot truly be myself if I continuously apologize for who I am.
mm. You can type that in now. Type
And
that
then
one in. That's another
I'll
powerful
type
one.
that one in, yes, for sure. And then growth is not loud. It is not loud at all. Sometimes it's the most quiet decision to choose something different or to do something differently.
You're on fire today, darling.
And
Need to
those
have
are those
more
are
of
the
these conversations.
those are the things, the lessons I think in this year that has really shifted who I am. It has really given me a lot of peace in accepting these lessons.
Mm.
And it's come with that acceptance, it's come with allowing me to be more present. um yeah, and you said that yes, we should go with our intuition, and you had wished that you had gone with that but everything happens in its time, Aneesa.
That's true.
Everything.
That's true. That's very true as well. I want to mention another thing that I learned just recently, that feeling like an imposter, when you have that imposter syndrome, it's not when you're having difficulty, it's when you're in your growth phase,
Mm,
when you're being called to elevate, to expand. That's when imposter syndrome shows up,
yeah.
because it's it's something that's new, it's unknown, it's not familiar. And the pledge that you're speaking about that you need to make with yourself, it's in those moments in particular, because are you going to give up midway because you feel like others might very well discover that you don't know what you don't know?
Mm,
So imposter syndrome is not really there when we are failing. It is when we are growing. So for anyone listening, that was one of my bigger lessons, that it's okay when you're sometimes in rooms. I mean, I had a recent experience, I think I shared it on the last podcast with one of our other guests, where I just lost my footing in that moment, but yet in the other two conversations that I had prior in the negotiation phase, the other stakeholders were wowed and were like, listen, you've really latched onto something here. And the moment I had to meet somebody in a more senior role, that's the owner, the founder of the business, I wasn't holding my own. But the growth wasn't in finally closing that opportunity. The growth was actually learning that I needed to own my space and not apologize for
mm,
who I was in that room, or the way that I expressed or communicated something, or felt that it didn't sound in the way that it needed to for this person. When I then was in my authenticity, I shifted into this performance mode. And that was the growth for me there, learning that when I'm feeling like I'm not meant to be in that room, but I actually was, I deserve to be in that room. I've owned my place to be there. The rejection was the rerouting, but also in learning to remind myself that stay in your authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Authenticity is, I always call it, it's a superpower. If
Mm,
people don't realize that, it is your superpower. And if you lead quietly like somebody does, like Jamila does, that's okay. You shouldn't have to apologize for that. If you don't indulge in conflict, as an example, in the way that others might want to head on, and you need to process and then respond from an unemotional perspective, that's fine too.
mm,
But in the moment, we're so used to leading with the egoic response and the victim response, like you said. So it's very easy to get there. I see there's a comment. Thank you, Shahid. Shahid says raw wisdom is priceless, and the ability to articulate the path one must follow rather than follow blindly. Thank you for taking me on this journey. Thank you for being here with us on
mm.
this journey. We learn from everyone as well.
100%.
Anything
Yeah.
else in our 8 minutes that we have left?
I think,
Time is
Anissa,
gone.
one important thing also is understanding and acknowledging the quiet victories that we often overlook,
Mm.
because we do this. I certainly do it. And these might come in things or forms like waking up on the days when you just want to remain under that blanket and you don't want to see anyone, and you feel you're completely depleted and have no energy for anything, least of all getting up. But you get up anyway, and you wake up and you get through the day in any. And these are quiet victories that we should definitely
I agree.
acknowledge for ourselves. These are the finer points of gratitude that we should really take note of. When you still show kindness to someone, even when you yourself are completely exhausted and you feel like you have nothing in you, you still show kindness. Um, Something like honoring your boundaries, and that's not easy to do because we often let it slide, depending on who we are encountering. But just honoring your boundaries is something that's so important, and we should really be grateful for that. Maintaining your integrity, that's a
Mm.
huge one, because this has been a challenging year, as you know. I've shared with you, I've
Yes.
confided in you, but just to maintain your integrity. And like you said, understand that there's a bigger purpose to things, understand that you don't have to prove anything.
Mm.
Life will unfold and speak for itself when the time is right. It's not something that you need to
Wonderful.
force. So always, continue your path with the utmost respect for yourself as well as others, but always maintain your integrity. And another thing is that, like we said, we get knocked down so often, but you've got to keep trying again and again, after disappointment, because that disappointment, like you say, is a rerouting, right? And if you don't try, you're never going to get to that destination. You're never going to achieve the goals. You're never going to get the rewards from it. And I think a final one for me would be choosing healing over bitterness, because it's so easy to be bitter, it's so easy to be angry. But to choose that healing and to go through all the processes, to question yourself, um, is this the best way that I could have responded or reacted to a certain situation or a conversation or whatever that may be? Consistently asking yourself in order to understand yourself better and to elevate who you are and where you are in this continuous journey of growth and self actualization and self confidence and self esteem. I think that that's a huge one, is to choose healing over that
Mm.
bitterness and disappointment, misunderstandings.
I
For
couldn't
me,
say it any better than you.
these are
I
the
mean,
victories that matter most, and it's the most simplest that are often the ones that have the most impact.
yes. I mean, as a coach, I tell my clients, I give them a strategy, but I say to them, don't think about the celebration part being waiting for the end goal of an achievement of something. You can celebrate having caught yourself in the moment, going into your wounded state and shifting that.
Yeah.
That's a celebration, people. It's so underestimated. But if I caught myself not going into my abandonment and rejection wound, I'm like, yes, like, wow, that's a different level of healing. And healing is not linear, so there's no start and end. So to your point, stay with the healing because you and the feeling. I mean, I had a beautiful client yesterday who just needed me to hold space, and I couldn't move into a coaching energy, and I had to be respectful of that. And sometimes as
Mm.
coaches, we forget, yes, we have the agenda of the goals and the vision and the purpose and the mission, but sometimes we just need to be there and hold that sacred space for that individual so that they can feel witnessed in their pain, in their wound, in their overwhelm, and in their anxiety. And guess what? That's another small victory that you can celebrate because innately we are conditioned to want to rescue, to save, to please. But the beauty of truly holding a sacred space for others to be okay with feeling. And I want to use one more example. I coached another client who was actually quite suicidal. And in the first session, I said to her, I don't think I'm your person. Let me give you what is necessary between a therapeutic ask versus a coach. And then I asked her there and then, do you want to stay in the energy of this? And I can honor today's conversation for this, but I understand that the following conversations can't be that. It's who do you want to become? And what was interesting, we concluded yesterday, and this is not about praise and applause for me. I am just but a vessel. But to hear her say, it was wonderful to be able to speak things that I can't speak to even my closest people in my life, that I haven't even shared. Remember, there's many gifts and talents we all have. When last have we thanked the Almighty for those gifts?
Yeah.
And again, if you must take stock of what the Almighty has bestowed upon you as a talent or a gift, or how you can hold others, support others, go and say thank you. Because the more we say thank you, the more we will receive that vibrational energy
Mhm.
coming back to us, and we will continue on that vibration. But it's celebrating the little victories. It's celebrating being able to show up. And I want to tell you, I had 2 days this week where I didn't want to do a thing.
Mm.
And you know what this time of the year's energy is. Yikes, we've got only a few days, like in December, to be able to still have meetings and strategize and plant seeds and get new business and line it up for 2026. I can tell you now, Jamila, I celebrated that this week. I allowed myself to say, no, I can't. I'm not energetically there to be able to do that. And if I'm
Mm.
going to try, when I have these conversations, where am I having it from? My wounded state, not my empowered state.
Mm.
So again, the celebrations is not just the achievements, the accomplishments, the things, the material things. It's the intangible stuff that maybe you don't know you're supposed to be taking stock of and measuring. So that's all from me today.
Yeah, I
Last,
think
last
one last
closing.
message from me is I think before this year ends is we should take a moment to honor ourselves. Honor
Mm,
yourself. And this doesn't have to be that polished version of who you think you are, but rather the real you, the
mm,
one who kept going, who kept learning, who kept rising despite everything, and despite
yes.
yourself also. And just to come to the understanding that this year didn't just happen to you, it shaped you, it grew you in ways that you could never have imagined, and ultimately, it has carried you into that journey of your becoming
Mm.
or of who you are becoming. So, for me, I think that's my final message for this week. Um,
A powerful one indeed. And so I'm going to close off today and say thank you, Jamila. I know you're not also feeling 100%, and yet you are here again, showing up consistently. I can't thank you enough for just being there this year. So I want to close off by honoring you and honoring Marissa, who's behind the scenes. I know we are going to have more conversations, but we still packed with other guests. I don't think you and I will have necessarily an opportunity, or we may,
mm,
because it doesn't have to wait for a special time. I just want to say, thank you, because in the hustle and the bustle and the rushing and the juggling, you showed up. I think we only missed one or two sessions this year. I think
yeah,
so. And that was simply because we both had other commitments on, or a guest cancelled and we couldn't get another guest, and I had a bit of a faux pas with my grading of assignments, and I could do it then. But bottom line, thank you, you know,
no,
for making this a 2-year mark. We've reached 2 years at the end of this month. Um, it is
can't believe it.
it speaks volumes,
It speaks
that we're
volumes,
here.
and I can't, the experience for me has been priceless. And likewise, I echo your words to say thank you and my gratitude, because even though we haven't spent that much time physically together, the bond has been one of that goes way beyond 2 years, I think. And I think
Mm.
it's mainly because you allow me that space to just be my authentic self without any judgment. And that's something that's really very rare. Not most people don't have it. I never had it for the better part of my life. There's a few people that I can say that just truly accept me in as that version of myself, and by doing so, just encourage me and enlighten me and allow me to be better and to grow and just to receive all the gifts from special people like yourself in my life. So I'm truly, truly grateful for that.
Gonna receive that in my heart. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge our Instagram people before we go. Auntie Juleika says, so informative and beneficial. You ladies are an inspiration to us all. Alhamdulillah. Um, so, Alhamdulillah in Islam is another form of gratitude, uh, all glory and praise to the Almighty. And then we had Mishi here and Angela Wall. Thank you for everyone that joined. We'll see you again, same time next week. Those that are watching the replay and those that have watched and want to go write their comments, what are you grateful for? Let's maybe continue in that energy and type in the comments on the LinkedIn post or on YouTube, wherever you feel comfortable to go and share what you are grateful for, because it does shift the vibrational energy that Jamila spoke about earlier. So, on that note, I'm going to end our live and we'll see whoever again next week, same time, same place.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.